Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So many people were outraged to find that a male athlete won the Oregon State Championship in the women's 200 meters. That basically woke a lot of people up to see how absurd this situation has become. And it was great to see that the majority of people seem to regard Asta Jones as the rightful winner, the young lady who came second. And the crowd booed and didn't go along with it. And many people were happy to see that, especially in a blue state such as Oregon. Portland is super woke. One of the heats occurred in Portland, or maybe it was the semi-finals. People in that competition were cheering.
In 6 for Wilhelmina, Jaden Vanderveen. In 7 for Oregon Episcopal, Abby Wilson. Out very well is Gallagher and McDaniel in lane 2. You're going to see Gallagher later on in the relays. Great knees, great drive. Gallagher, the victory here in section number 1. 25-49.
So people were surprised that at the next event, people booed. And it was clear as day that the young girls were not happy with the situation. They clapped when Asta took her medal, which should have been a gold, obviously. But when a transgender athlete took the gold medal, the girls were silent, they weren't clapping. And it was obvious that they're not happy with the situation, as you can imagine. So there were some people saying, look, this isn't the child's fault. These are the sporting bodies that are allowing this. This person technically is not breaking any rules. They're allowed to compete in the women's category. So the people we should direct our anger towards are the sporting bodies, or the adults who are in charge. But the message the whole situation gave was that the tides are turning. People are no longer going along with insanity. People are no longer denying what their eyes are showing them. People are no longer pretending that a male can be a female whenever he feels like it. That's what that whole situation signified to many of us. So there's a bar in Oregon and it's called the Sports Bra. And it's a sports bar that only shows women's sports. So if you go in there, you're only going to see WNBA games. You're only going to see women's soccer, women's tennis. So patronizing this bar is a great way to support women's sports. Now, people are going to have different opinions about that. Some people might consider it woke, especially as this is a bar in Oregon. But the fact is, the only way there is going to be more money into women's sports, the only way the salaries are going to get better, the sponsorships are going to get better, the coverage is going to get better, is if more people watch, is if more people come out and support. That's the only way. Everything we're complaining about when it comes to women's sports, the salaries and all of that, that's only going to get better once more people watch. So a bar that is dedicated to women's sports, I think is a good thing. I think that's encouraging more people to get into women's sports. Some people who have never watched women's sports before, they might not know where to begin. But going to a bar like this could be an interesting experience.
It looked for all the world like an actual sporting event was taking place on a recent Friday here in Portland, Oregon. There were cheerleaders, news cameras. They even cut down a net. But, in fact, all of this was to celebrate the opening of a sports bar. And Jamie Orr was first in line.
It feels like a very monumental day, not just in Portland, but for women's sports.
That's because this isn't just any sports bar. It's the first one in America that exclusively shows women's sports on all of its TVs. If you're mostly a fan of men's sports, it would never even occur to you that a bar might not be showing the championship game or might have the sound turned off. But that's exactly what happened back in 2019 when Jenny Wynn and her friends wanted to watch Baylor versus Notre Dame in the Women's NCAA Championship.
At the end of the night,
the game was one for the ages.
It ended up being just like a spectacular game.
On the drive for the lead, got it to go!
But the audio feed was non-existent, at least in the bar where Wynn and her friends were watching.
Somebody was like, yeah, it would have been better if the sound were on.
And so she had a thought. That kind of thought you might have after a couple of beers but never follow up on.
I said something to the effect of, the only way we're ever going to be able to watch a women's game like in its full glory is if we had our own place.
Wynn and her friends even had a name for this still mythical bar that she fantasized about opening someday.
The sports bra. You know, because it just makes sense. Like, just switch a couple letters around. A little bit after that, I was like, I know what the tagline's going to be. We support women. And it was a big joke.
But that joke got serious after the Me Too movement and the pandemic had Wynn looking for a way to make an impact on the culture in whatever way she could.
You know, the whole country was going through a phase of reprioritizing what was important.
However, Jenny's mom, whom she'd been working for at their family real estate company, was dubious.
I yelled at her and I said, this is not good. With the COVID and labor shortage, it's not going to work. But she told me, she said, Mom, you cannot stop me. I am doing it.
And so she did, raising over $100,000 on Kickstarter. Along the way, she and the bar became something of a media sensation.
One of its kind in the world.
Like I said, if you go to that bar, you will have an interesting experience. The good thing is, it's a bar that supports women's sports. And it's a great story. She saw something that she wasn't happy with. I mean, I don't really see the point of putting something on the screen and not even putting the sound on. That shows the complete disregard that a lot of people have for women's sports. Let's just be honest. People weren't watching, people weren't interested, people didn't even care that the sound wasn't turned up. Just a few people who wanted to watch it. So instead of getting mad, she decided to open her own bar that would showcase what's important to her. That's fine. And I think that's actually what I consider the American dream. So I've got no problem with that. And again, people might go there for the first time and learn a lot more about women's sports because that's all they're going to see on the screen. They're going to become a lot more familiar with female athletes, with certain competitions, certain tournaments that are particular to women's sports. So that's great. So you can imagine my disappointment to find out that this bar, they say that they're a champion of women's sports, but they're not clear on what a woman is. And this is the problem. We want to talk about all the benefits of Title IX. We want to talk about all the benefits of women's sports. But if you cannot be honest about what a woman is, or you don't know what a woman is, you're not fit for purpose when it comes to advocating for women. You're not. While people in Oregon were booing a male athlete winning a women's competition, a women's category, this bar was cheering it on. And this is the insanity that we're dealing with today when it comes to this whole thing. You claim to be such a champion for women, women's sports and all of that. You even open a bar that only shows women's sports. Then turn around and cheer on a male athlete who is cheating women out of their own competition, out of their own sports. One of many, may I add. A male athlete who won by such a ridiculous margin to the fact that people could no longer deny the advantage that male bodies have over females. So why on earth are people who claim to advocate for women, who claim to be feminists, cheering on male athletes dominating our sports? Why are they cheering for this? And one person asking the same question is Martina Navratilova. She said, you can't make this up. Only in America or Canada, UK, Australia. The rest of the world is looking at this and laughing. So she did do a Kickstarter, which I find to be a very inspirational story. You got people to invest in this bar. But one of the investors is Serena Williams' husband, Alexis Ohanian.
Well, who would it be?
Well, I don't know. Let's say you would be the.
I was hoping you'd say.
All right, feminine side. And me.
And you. Oh. Well, actually, it's funny because Andy Murray, he was been joking about myself and him playing a match, and I'm like, Andy, seriously, like, are you kidding me? Because for me, tennis and men's tennis and women's tennis are completely almost two separate sports. So I'm like, if I were to play Andy Murray, I would lose 6-0, 6-0, and 5 to 6 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, because it's true. It's
honestly,
true. It's a completely different sport. The men are a lot faster, and they serve harder, they hit harder. It's just a different game, and I love to play women's tennis, and I only want to play girls because I don't want to be embarrassed. I would not do the tour. I wouldn't do Billie Jean any justice. So Andy, stop it.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna let you kill me.
I'm with you when it comes to tennis. I only want to play girls.
Yeah.
Everybody with common sense knows the reality of this. But for some reason, when a man says he identifies as a woman, all common sense goes out the window, and we decide that he can now compete in a women's category and that he is a woman, and we're going to cheer him on while he's dominating the women's category and stopping women from getting medals, stopping women from getting sponsorships, scholarships, stopping women from winning championships. That championship was Asta's. It's clear as day. She was actually quite far ahead of the other women. That was her competition. She deserved it. And we have advocates for women cheering this on and saying that I'm cheering on another woman. It's absolute delusion. If you want to advocate for trans athletes, advocate for categories for them. Why is it okay to infringe upon women's sports? Women's sports has enough problems, as we know, as these very people would love to highlight. Oh, they don't get paid enough. They don't get this. They don't get that. They're the first to speak up when it comes to pay. They claim it's discrimination, preferential treatment for men over women. But allowing a male athlete into a women's category isn't giving them preferential treatment, isn't putting them before women for some reason. I don't see how people can advocate for male athletes to be in women's categories with a straight face while claiming to be a feminist. And they give themselves a pat on the back because they complain about pay, when a lot of their arguments when it comes to pay are unrealistic. You can't say that WNBA players should get paid the same as the men when it's the NBA that subsidizes the WNBA. Doesn't make any sense. It's going to take a long time for female basketball to be in the same level as the men's, I'm sorry, to justify them getting paid millions upon millions. But the good news is that more people are watching, and it is growing organically to the point where women can now negotiate better pay, they can negotiate better sponsorship deals because of people like Caitlin Clark. All the young athletes from college basketball that are coming up now have drawn more attention to the sport. If more tickets are sold, if arenas are packed, more money is going to come into the sport. It's as simple as that. So it will happen, but it won't happen if it's now ruined by male athletes pretending to be women, dominating women's categories. People are not going to watch that. They're not. Maybe initially for a laugh, but when it comes down to it, people aren't going to invest time and money, take their kids to go and see a WNBA game with a bunch of male athletes with wigs on or whatever. They're not going to watch that. So if you want to derail the growth that women's sports has experienced, carry on advocating for males to be in their categories. That's exactly what it's going to do. It's going to continue to derail the growth of women's sports. Even Title IX is being destroyed before our very eyes. The legislation that ensured that women had sports to begin with, that women had their own tournaments, their own categories to begin with, is now being destroyed and being used against women. That's what happens when you don't know what a woman is. That's what happens when you cheer on males in women's sports. So Martina Navratilova was left furious as Serena Williams' husband's Alexis Ohanian's latest investment, claiming to promote only women's sports, celebrated our biological male athlete's win in a women's championship. The Reddit co-founder invested in the company earlier this year. So this company is expanding, and it's great, that a bar that supports women-only sports, that only plays women's sports exclusively, is expanding across the country. But now it's clear as day what this bar is all about. Ohanian is a well-known advocate for women's sports and has never shied away from investing in various ventures that he feels will bring more attention to them. His recent investment, the Sports Bra, is a bar that only televises women's sports in a bid to popularise it. Jenny Nugent, a professional chef and former college basketball player, founded it 2 years ago. Williams' husband's Ohanian's 776 Foundation invested an undisclosed amount in the Sports Bra earlier this year. However, in a strange turn of events, the Sports Bra's Instagram page recently congratulated a biological male athlete on his dominance at the girls' Oregon State Track Championships. The trans girl, Aiden, apparently received a lot of backlash from people due to participation in a girls' championship. Aiden's mother reached out to the bar via Instagram to provide her daughter with a comfortable space, which led them to post a congratulatory message on their page. I have a lot of people watch this channel. Well, I don't know if it's a lot, but I have people who watch this channel who don't have the same political views as me, but they have common sense. You're going to have to pick a side. You're going to have to decide, are you for women or are you not? It's very simple. That's what that was, basically an opportunity for that bar to do, and they decided to pick the side of the male athlete who wants to infringe upon women's sports. When it comes to this whole thing, protecting women's sports, highlighting women's sports, advocating for women's sports, you're going to have to pick a side. You can't straddle the fence. You can't claim to be for women's sports, but cheer on Asta having a championship stolen from her, every girl in that competition being cheated by a male athlete. You can't cheer that on. It's contradictory. It makes no sense. I'm tired of the gaslighting, how disingenuous these people are. Now, Ohanian and Serena, they're advocates for women's sports, obviously, because Serena wants other little Serenas to come behind her and have the opportunities that she had as someone who grew up in Compton. So again, when it comes to what you invest in, when it comes to what you cheer on, what you encourage, you're going to have to pick a side. Enough is enough of this. The mother reached out to the bar because she wants her son to receive some support from women who claim to advocate for women that will validate, what she's allowed her son to do. And the bar was happy to go along with it because the bar is woke. You saw all the signs, the flags that were in the bar, whatever. And they decided to go along with it. But what they're doing is, while claiming to be advocate for women's sports, they're slapping women in the face. You can't have it both ways. Those young girls were not happy about having a male athlete in their competition. They weren't happy about it. It was clear as day. I think there was maybe one girl who clapped, but ultimately they weren't happy. Who's going to advocate for them? The sports bar that only televises women's sports? Apparently not. The legislators who helped compile Title IX, are they going to fight for the girls? Apparently not. The feminists who advocate for women to get better pay, who say that female soccer players should be paid the same as men, WNBA players should be paid the same as men, or at least comparable to men. Are they going to advocate for the young girls in that Oregon State Championship who were cheated? No, apparently not. That makes absolutely no sense. Icon said Serena Williams' husband's new investment, the Sports Bra, a bar which claims to only showcase women in sports, celebrates a male athlete after he dominated the recent girls' Oregon State Track Championships. So they posted in response to Aiden's mother's request, huge congratulations to Aiden on your first and second place finishes at state. Aiden, she, her, is a local trans girl athlete and has been facing hateful backlash, harassment, the politicizing of her passion for participating in sports, and was most recently booed and had protesters show up at her track meet last week while she was racing and on the podium. Her mother reached out to us via Instagram to find a safe space and community who would not only welcome and embrace her daughter for who she is, but to celebrate her for being an incredible athlete and winning in the face of all of the backlash and challenges. Of course we said yes. We're more than thrilled to host a local track star and celebrate. Everyone deserves to be their true selves and to play sports. Please share only love in the comments below and show them the support we all have as one bra family. To Aiden, her loving family, friends, and to all trans athletes everywhere, we support you. Posted with permission. Okay, yeah. Now, I'm not saying that they need to post anything directed towards Aiden in a negative way, or, you know, if they were really for the young girls on the podium who were not happy about a male athlete winning their category, then they probably would have just sat this one out and not cheered on what that male athlete did. They wouldn't cheer it on. But clearly, they're all for the whole gender ideology. I guess in their mind, they are cheering on another woman who has had some challenges along the way, mainly being born male. So again, you don't have to post anything negative about the young person, but if they truly were for women, they would have sat this one out and just carried on showcasing women participating in sports. And if they wanted to advocate for trans people, advocate for another category. Allegedly, this is the mum. Thank you so much for this incredible post about my amazing, strong, resilient, fast AF daughter. Fast because the person is male. Not fast when competing against other males. Certainly wouldn't have come first in a state championship. To see her celebrated is amazing. And thank you to everyone in the comments. Your love and support is so heartwarming after such a negative past 5 weeks. She's only 15. This is the first sport she has ever done. Total artsy nerd her whole life. With training, she's going to blow everyone away. We are so excited to see her grow and develop. She ran 23.77 at districts, so I anticipate sub 23 next season, if not sub 22. There's nothing mind-blowing about a male athlete running significantly faster than the female athletes. Nothing mind-blowing about that. Now, I'm not advocating for the young person to receive hate mail or anything like that. But I am saying that we, the adults, should not be going along with this. That's number one. The adults should not be going along with this. The adults should not be encouraging delusion because the person is still male. We have male and female categories in sports for a reason. Identity doesn't take away that reason. And saying that somebody has a right to participate should not be at the expense of other people's participation, should not be at the expense of women's participation in their own sports. It should not be at the expense of women's privacy in their own locker rooms. And we really shouldn't be telling kids they're born in the wrong body. How can this boy's mum be supportive of her son unfairly competing against girls and taking their medals? Icons pointed out that mediocre male athletes are currently receiving NCAA DI women's scholarships, amounting to hundreds of thousands of dollars in savings and higher education for their families. Oh, someone tagged Alexis. Are you aware of the extremists working in your Portland bar investment? Their sexual discrimination has caused a deserved backlash. Want it to foment a boycott? And it's your stake in the bar, not Serena's, so I'm leaving her alone. Will you stand up for girls and women's rights? And a quote from Martina says, "There is no such thing as tolerable unfairness." It's a sad situation if you ask me. I feel for those young girls who are having to deal with this. I did athletics when I was in school, or track, and I never had to deal with anything like this because back then we knew what a woman was. And now we have parents of young girls who are participating in sports, who are seeing their daughters having to compete against males. Spare thought for those parents. And this is why the parents booed. They were standing up for their daughters, and they have every right to do that. Nobody should be okay with a young girl being put through this. Women's participation in their own sports matters. When you start allowing males to compete, it takes away the motivation. Because you know that no matter how hard you work, you can't compete. It's not a level playing field. You're competing against somebody who has the upper hand. Not to mention that some girls have had to compete against multiple trans athletes. The court case in Connecticut going on at the moment. These young girls are fighting for girls like Asta because they went through it. Their sporting careers didn't go down the correct path because they had multiple transgender athletes to compete against. And at this level, all you have to do is identify as a woman. There's no hormones or anything like that. There's no guidelines other than identity, public identity. That's it. A boy can literally walk into a girl's category, take all the accolades, and people will cheer them on, even advocates for women's sports. An Oregon coach, he said that there were boys literally coming back after the summer saying that they're girls. He alleged that some of them were doing it just to get into their locker room.
We're allowing men or boys to play in these sports. It's dangerous, it's wrong. We have boys in the locker rooms watching girls go through their get ready for practice or a match or a game. How wrong is that for a girl to have to endure something like that? What we would have called 5 or 6 years ago somebody going to jail is now acceptable in high schools and middle schools. And if you're in a public school, at least in Oregon, you can't say anything or you will be ostracized, you will be put down, you will be shamed, and you just don't have a voice. People can't stand up and say anything, but I will. I'm going to say this is wrong on every level. These are not girls, they're boys saying they're a girl. They're playing a false sport, come back and play a girl sport and go back to playing a boy sport. All they have to do is change their paperwork at the district office. I'm not going to support it. I'm never going to lie to a kid.
It is not right. These silly policies are taking away boundaries that were put in place for safety and fairness. This is what our young female athletes are being stripped of. They're being stripped of their rights. And what is mind-blowing, the people who are cheering this on are feminists, are women rights advocates, are people who claim to be advocates of women's sports. But I'm glad at least more people are waking up and acknowledging that this is wrong. So let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Take care of yourselves, and God willing, I will see you in the next video.